10. Crystal Lake Hammer Attack. When two women went for a relaxing stroll around Crystal Lake, the last thing they expected was to meet Angel R. Cardoza, the 50-year-old man who attacked them with a hammer. This terrifying incident occurred just after 5 o'clock at night in September of 2019. According to the prosecutors on the case, Angel Cardoza was riding his bike down the trail when he spotted a woman walking alone. For whatever crazy reason, he took out a hammer and started beating her in the head with it. Another woman came upon the grisly scene, yelled at the psycho to stop, threatened to call 911, and then she too was bludgeoned with the hammer. Cardoza stopped beating the first woman and ran after the bystander, striking her once in the arm before he turned and fled. Luckily, the two women were able to quickly get some help. They were transported to the Northwestern Medicine McHenry Hospital and treated for non-life-threatening injuries. As for Mr. Cardoza, he was captured 3 days later by the police and later pled guilty to one count of attempted murder and another count of aggravated battery. He was then sentenced to spend 30 years in prison. The real question here is, why did Cardoza attack these women? Unfortunately, we don't know the answer. As of right now, it looks like a random lake attack with absolutely no reasonable motive. 9. Disney Alligator. The happiest place on Earth turned into the most tragic place on Earth when the Florida authorities had to recover the body of a young boy who was dragged into a lake by an alligator while on vacation with his family. This terrifying thing happened to a toddler from Nebraska while playing in the water near Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. It was just after 9 o'clock at night, an ordinary Tuesday, and everything was quiet. Then, from out of nowhere, the vicious alligator emerged from the lake, snatched the young boy in its powerful jaws, and pulled him underwater. Suffice to say, the toddler's parents were in shock. It happened so fast that there was nothing they could do. The father charged in after him, but the alligator was too wily. It vanished into the water and was not seen again. The boy wasn't seen again either, at least not until the next day in the middle of the afternoon. Orange County Sheriff Jerry Demings helped recover the boy's corpse and had the unfortunate task of telling his parents that the little boy won't be enjoying the rest of his Disney vacation. An autopsy found that he was drowned by the alligator. The murderous beast has since been tracked down and euthanized. 8. Choking at Lady Lake. Marlene Blow was discovered face down and dead, floating in Lake Quigsigamon on July 28th. At first, investigators thought the poor woman had drowned, but they quickly learned that was not the case. When they did an autopsy on the 38-year-old woman, they found that her neck had been fractured and that she suffered injuries suggestive of a violent struggle. The drowning turned into a murder. The investigation revealed that Marlene had been spending a lot of time in the park where her body was found. However, nobody really knew what she was doing there. It later came out that Marlene was last seen with a man named Joseph Derryrimple at about 2 o'clock in the morning the day she was killed. When the police tried to apprehend Joseph, he denied ever meeting Marlene. His story quickly changed, though, and he admitted that the two had been meeting and that they had been getting frisky in the park at night. Apparently, Marlene was living a dangerous life that her family didn't know about, having midnight outings at the lake with strange men. But she picked the wrong man that night, as Joseph already had a long history of domestic violence. He even got busted in 2010 for shoving his girlfriend onto the floor. Nobody knows exactly what went wrong during their encounter, but whatever it was, Marlene ended up literally sleeping with the fishes. 7. The Lava Lake Murders. An outing in Bend, Oregon that took place decades ago still haunts the locals who live around Lava Lake. It was the fall of 1923, and a trio of friends were heading out to the lake to hunt marten and fox. They were due to be back after the winter was over, but they never returned to their homes. Their families and friends became worried and sent a search party to look for the three men. They were discovered underneath the frozen ice of Lava Lake, murdered. To this day, the terrible crime has never been solved. Here's what investigators were able to piece together in the 1920s. The men were staying in a cabin in the woods right beside Lava Lake. They made moonshine and hunted for furs throughout the fall and winter. Around Christmas, they went back to Bend to sell a load of furs, then returned to the cabin. They were supposed to be home for good in February, but by April they still hadn't gone back. The cabin was later found abandoned, with dishes still on the table from an abruptly abandoned breakfast. They left behind their rifles and traps and winter clothing. There was also a hammer found in the storage shed stained with blood. Then the bodies were discovered. All three men had been shot and beaten with a hammer, then wrapped in canvas and dropped into the lake. To this day, nobody has any idea who the killer is or why he targeted the three men, seemingly minding their own business at the cabin on the lake. Who do you think murdered these men and why? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. Rocky Return. While trying to return home, a man ended up on the wrong side of the water at Lake Jacozzi near the Devil's Fork State Park in South Carolina. According to the Oconee County Coroner's Office, the unfortunate man drowned at about 4:50 p.m. on Tuesday. He was about to leave the lake after a relaxing fishing trip. He's been identified as 85-year-old Wallace Edward Curtis, and his body was found just 20 yards, 18 meters from the boat ramp. He almost made it home when the freak accident occurred. Curtis left home very early in the morning that Tuesday. His family members became increasingly concerned as the hours went by and he never returned. They called him, but he didn't answer. They started to panic. It was a man walking by Curtis's vehicle that ended up solving the mystery, as he heard Curtis's phone ringing and answered it. Curtis's vehicle was still parked on the boat ramp, back down to the water, and the engine still running. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what had happened. The 85-year-old man had been trying to get his boat onto the trailer attached to his truck when something went horribly wrong. Curtis likely tripped, hit his head, and ended up floating dead in the water, leaving his boat just a few yards from the landing. 5. Speedboat Nightmare. In Colombia, disaster struck when a speedboat crashed straight into an inflatable raft. This was in the coastal city of Cartagena, and although it was pretty bad, it could have been a lot worse. The victims here were brothers, just some dudes enjoying their day off at the local beach. They were hitched to the back of a boat in their very own inflatable tube. Not a care in the world. Then from out of nowhere, a speedboat plowed into them head first, as if the driver had actually been trying to hit them. The inflatable tube obviously lost the fight with the speedboat, and the brothers were sent spiraling into the water. One of them got hit so hard by the speedboat that his jaw was fractured and his teeth burst out of his head. According to one of the victims, Julian Casabuenos, the speedboat was being operated by a teenager. The kid driving the speedboat didn't even stick around to see what happened, and instead took off and was never seen again. And seeing as this is Colombia, Julian complained that the police didn't care, the Port Authority didn't do anything, and this time, no justice will be served for the devastating hit and run. 4. Snakebite at Moss Lake. At Lake Moss, a teenage boy was sent to the hospital after being bitten by an extremely dangerous snake. According to Cook County Sheriff Mike Compton, the young boy had just jumped off a dock and was swimming around in the designated swimming area with some friends when a water moccasin came out of nowhere, sunk its fangs into his arm, and then swam away like nothing happened. The incident occurred at about 6:15 p.m., but the emergency call wasn't made until 6:40. Even though the kid got out of the lake okay, he wasn't sure if any venom had been injected into him. When emergency responders arrived, they had him airlifted to a hospital anyway. A water moccasin has such powerful venom that it's been known to kill a fully grown person, so a child would definitely not fare too well. It was better to be safe than sorry. And luckily the snake hadn't actually delivered any venom into the child's body. It only bit him, which is extremely fortunate for the young boy. This is especially true since according to the University of Maryland Medical Center, at least 8,000 people in the United States are bitten by venomous snakes each year. The wound still hurt quite a bit and the boy needed to be treated for an infection. But he got away without being poisoned by the evil serpent. 3. Last goodbye. A casual boating trip turned into tragedy at the Lake Forest Yacht Club when Richard Dove crashed his boat. Nobody is sure what exactly happened, but eyewitnesses said he hit something hard, causing the boat to crash and for Richard to go overboard. At the time of the accident, Richard was with his black lab named Whiskey, his best friend who he never went anywhere without. The dog survived the accident, but Richard was taken to the hospital and put on life support. Unfortunately, Richard didn't make it. The poor dog was looked after by one of the witnesses who saw the accident. His name is Don Boyd, and he said he could tell just how loyal Richard's dog was by the way the animal paced and cried all night without its owner. But here's where things get really sad. When Richard was taken off life support, the nurses allowed his dog to pay one final visit. The last moments of Richard's life, although he was comatose and didn't know it, were spent with his beloved dog. And after Richard was gone, the dog was handed over to some family members. 2. Drowned activist. Malik Alim has been described as an incredible human. He was an activist from Chicago who gained serious notoriety for leading the movement to end cash bonds in Illinois. But unfortunately for Malik, all his good deeds couldn't save him from a tragic tubing accident while out with his family in Fox Lake. What should have been a wonderful time with Malik and his 2 children turned into a nightmare. Malik was with his kids in a tube being pulled by a boat. They were having fun, bouncing off the waves, until one extremely large wave sent all 3 of them into the lake. The children managed to grab back onto the inflatable tube, but Malik never resurfaced from under the water. He had no life jacket on and apparently couldn't swim very well. When he hit the surface of the lake, he sank like a stone and never came back up. His body wasn't discovered until the next day. 1. Drunk boating. A dramatic boat crash at Smithville Lake in Minnesota was caused by a man known to be a degenerate and a bit of a drunk. The guy's name is Michael Britton, and he was behind the wheel of a boat when he crashed into a smaller boat and injured all 10 people aboard the smaller vessel. Everyone on board had to be driven away in ambulances. After the accident, investigators uncovered a long history of similar driving accidents with Michael. He had been convicted of several traffic violations, of domestic battery, of burglary, and of driving under the influence. In fact, he already had 5 DUI arrests from between 2004 and 2020. Not only did he drive boats drunk, he also drove cars drunk. But in reality, things could have been a lot worse. The mother of one of the survivors told local news how lucky her daughter was that she saw the boat barreling towards her as she was able to jump out of the way and into the water. But the others on board were not so lucky, such as the 2-year-old who was injured and in dire condition when sent to the hospital. As for Michael, he wasn't even charged with a criminal offense. Instead, he was only cited for careless driving. What's the worst thing you've seen happen at a lake? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe and come back soon to check out more great content. See you next time. Bye.